love being around. There are others out there who assume that, you know what, let me ask 100 questions because I've been burnt.
Yeah, yeah.
And therefore, because I've been burnt, I can't blame them. Psychologically, that burning remains. I was in an abusive relationship. I was in a relationship, emotional abuse, not just physical.
Yes.
Where I was constantly put down. And therefore, the first time that I'm put down by somebody else, it reminds me of that.
Yes, yes.
But there could be even two completely different human beings. There's a put down from somebody who's arrogant. There's a put down from somebody who loves you but cares for you.
Yes.
You know, so one of the biggest problems as well is when you want to move on, but you're unfair to the person who you're trying to meet because you're judging them by the barometer either of the previous one or by the failures of the previous person.
Yeah, true. Very well said. Yes.
So there are divorcees who had great chances to move on and have a great relationship with somebody else. But when they've wanted that more, when they've had that chance, they compare.
Yeah, sure.
And then you've got completely different people.
Okay, so now moving to the next question. The viewers, Dr. Sayyid Ammar Nakshwani beautifully and very eloquently recited that dua, as it were, after Salat Isha. Prior to that, he mentioned verse 2 and 3 of Surah Talaq, the divorce, which is in itself a great dhikr. So, Dr. Sayyid Ammar, we have a question here. Assalamu alaikum, dear Sayyid. I have been divorced now for over a year and have 3 children who are baligh. My teenage kids do not wish to visit their father as he often tries to manipulate them against me, lies and threatens them. My question is, what rights do they have? Does their father still have to provide for them if they choose not to visit him but still respect him? So it's a really good question. He has told them if they don't obey him or are obedient to him, that he no longer has to provide for them. So there's emotional blackmail, perhaps, coercement, a number of different factors in this.
I think these situations,
difficult.
The ego of the wife and the ex-husband, the ego has to be shot down.
Okay.
You know, these kids do not deserve to be so confused.
Right.
And so agitated at that young age.
Okay.
It's very sad when we hear stories like this.
Okay.
I'll manipulate that child against her, she'll manipulate that son against me. This is not the ethics of the religion of Islam. And we have to keep on stressing the line, this is not the ethics of the religion of Islam, because either we're Muslim or, as the Quran says, that there were a group of people called the Arab who just didn't care about what Islam had brought when it came to their own laws and their own customs. You know, the tribal Bedouin Arab.
Right.
Now in this situation, the father has to maintain those kids. And the kids have a duty to show obedience towards their parents.
Right.
The father has a duty to maintain them.
Okay.
And somebody has to come towards an amicable agreement. It will not be reconciled between the father and the ex-wife, for example, and his ex-wife, because they already have a bitterness towards one another.
Yeah, yeah.
But there is still a need to maintain the relationship from both sides.
Okay, okay.
From both sides. Now, this father, unless he's somebody who's blasphemed Allah and the Prophet, and is someone who's cursed God and, you know, hates the religion, doesn't want to be near the... That's a different story.
Right, right.
You have somebody who you have a difference of opinion with the way you lived your life.
Yes.
There should still be some sort of communication.
Should there be some sort of mediation? Because
yeah, there has to be mediation.
In his mind, he may think, you know what? I'm going to play on that verse. Don't say off to me.
Yeah.
And there are people like that.
Yeah.
And therefore, it's a form of almost blackmailing someone. So
each situation, when it comes to a divorce and children, is different.
Right.
And that's why when it comes to child custody,
yeah,
in Islamic law after a divorce, in the past, for example, there used to be the classic opinion that if you divorce, the kids go with the mother up until the age of 2 for the boy, up until the age of 7 for the girl. Then there was the opinion of, no, at the age of 2, both the boy and the girl leave the mom and go back to the father.
Okay.
Then you hear of an opinion, both when they're 7, the boy and the girl, are to go back where? to the father.
Father.
After the age of 7. And in Lebanon, this caused difficulties and issues.
Right.
Because, you know, Lebanon has got a wonderful, diverse plurality of schools of Islam living together. Intra-faith and interfaith.
Okay.
And you've got the, you know, the Ja'fari school, which is represented in Lebanon as well. And you've got the Sharia court and so on for the Ja'fari madhab. And there were a number of divorcees who were adamant that why is it that in Shia law, child custody, I'm a divorcee, my 2-year-old has to go to that ex-husband of mine, if it's a boy, and the 7-year-old girl has to, for example, go towards my husband. Why? I'm a mum.
Yeah.
These are my heart walking outside my body. What's our children? The heart of a human walking outside their body.
Yep.
And
no doubt.
what you found is the question arises, why is it, for example, some of our great maraja said that when you are divorced, the mother can keep the child, which is a boy, until 2, and the daughter until 2, or 2 and 7, or 7 and 7. Or some even said the children stay with the mum until the mum gets married. So look at the varying opinions we have about custody of the child in Shia law. Why is this the case? Because each case is different.
Okay.
You see,
but sorry to interrupt you there.
Yeah.
But would that each case is different, and I agree with that. No, I'm not disputing that at all. But surely, going back to something that we discussed in show 1 and maybe even 2, the living standards of where one resides, does that play a factor? So, for example, if one is living in Najaf, Bahrain, and then living here, one or two people, one person, one of the spouse members may disagree with them. To hell with that, I'm not having that. I'm not going to give my child away, as it were, you know, according to what happened. So do you think that has also, because I think that also psychologically...
Well, one of the major clashes that you have is that you can use the legal system of a non-Muslim country.
Absolutely.
And I think there are many out there who will go towards the legal system of a non-Muslim country, knowing that, listen, in many cases in the non-Muslim legal system, the woman will have the greater the rights. Now, morally resorting to the non-Muslim legal system on such issues, when you could have resolved them amicably with the Muslim community. Some will say, which amicably? Our Maulanas won't listen to a word that we say. Others say that the Maulana knows his family. He's no way going to be, for example, looking after us. But my main point is, child custody after a divorce is not restricted to one particular classic opinion.
Right.
But rather, Imam al-Baqir and Imam al-Sadiq, they would have had looked at each case in its context.
Okay.
Contextually, that father is arrogant, drunkard, etc., etc. This is the answer. Contextually, that person is not a bad person. You two don't get on, but the kids shouldn't go through this.
Okay.
So everything is contextual.
Right.
So now, if we have a divorcee out there, and she has a 2-year-old boy and a 7-year-old girl, and Maulana has turned around, for example, and said that the opinion is 2 years, that boy goes to the dad. That is not the set opinion. There have been opinions where the idea was that the kids stay with the mum until the mum remarries. Now, Shia law, generally, you'll find an opinion that when the mum remarries, the kids go to the father.
Okay.
Now, this is not necessarily something which has to be in every case, because you've still got cases where fathers can be extremely difficult or even far away from religion. Now, you're going to put these kids in their house. The kids can be affected. But we know very well that when it comes to the age of maturity, from that age onwards, they can make their own decision or make their point clear. Before that, the husband has to make sure that he protects them and looks after them.
Alhamdulillah. So now we have a number of different questions. Salam, I have previously texted in about a problem Maulana in London. He, this weekend, sent me divorce papers dated from 3 months back. He has unilaterally terminated my marriage without my permission or consent and knowledge. My wife was caught having an affair, and I divorced her for this reason. He has ignored the significant fact and issued a non-fault divorce. What does the Sayyid think about this practice, and what can I do? What is a non-fault divorce? First of all, Sayyidina.
Well, with these cases, you know, we really need to listen to both sides before we begin to put judgments, and then we gave this opinion. Because divorce for a Maulana can be a nightmare.
Yeah.
Because divorce for a Maulana, if you give an opinion, it could be a case of, for example, it can be a case where you've taken one side and the other side is completely angry with you. If you found that there is a case where you have been oppressed,
yes,
then go to the office of the marja,
right,
where you reside. In London, for example, you'll find that Maraja have got their offices. You go there and present your case. And also make clear that this person, I believe, has made a mistake in this area.
Yeah.
Speak to him. Check why has this happened. I think this is what needs to be done.
Okay. Salam, question for the show. Usually when women get married, they have to leave their hometown to be with the husband and his family. Some even have to move to other countries and give up their families. Some years later, the husband divorces his wife and his family also abandons her. But due to the children, she is now stuck and faces a hostage-type situation. What do you say about this oppression on women and children after divorce, and a man moves on and remarries?
No, this entering into marriage, no one said was going to be rosy. And no one said people are not going to change. People change. And no one said both of you spiritually have the same level.
No.
There is a strong possibility that things can become sour.
Yeah.
I'm broken, no doubt, when I hear of how sour things can become, because certain people have been treated abysmally. But there is always a way in which you can receive help. This is something that I believe we should encourage more. There are many ladies victims of domestic abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse. There have to be hostels and shelters in different areas that are able to cater for them when they are alone. That sister, for example, imagine your sister gets married to somebody and they live in the sticks somewhere where you guys have to take a 9-hour plane ride to go and visit them. Now, imagine a divorce does take place. Alhamdulillah, in many cases, you're able to, for example, at that moment say that, you know what, come home. We're booking your flight home.
Yeah.
But there are others who have no one. They have nobody who can help them at that moment. And we need to recognize this. And there always have to be local mosque endeavors, programs, organizations which seek to care for those ladies. Remember in the Quran, in Surah 58,
Right.
the Arabs used to, if for example he doesn't like his wife, he used to insult her by saying to her, you are to me like the back of my mother. A lady was insulted like that by the name of Khawla, Surah 58 of the Quran.
Okay.
And Surah 58 of the Quran begins, قَدْ سَمِعَ اللَّهُ قَوْلَ الَّتِي تُجَادِلُكَ فِي زَوْجِهَا وَتَشْتَكِي إِلَى اللَّهِ وَاللَّهُ يَسْمَعُ تَحَوْرَكُمَا إِنَّ اللَّهَ سَمِيعٌ بَصِيرٌ. Allah hears the cry of the pleading woman who complains about her husband. And I believe that there are many ladies out there who no doubt have been put into positions where it's very difficult to win, because if, for example, you've settled in a city for 15, 20 years, your kids have grown up with that language, and then all of a sudden he abandons you because he's found someone half your age, it's a difficult moment.
Yeah.
Because what do you do? Because the kids, what do you relocate with the kids? Where do you now start earning from? And when it brings us to, for example, the discussion about maintenance,
absolutely,
this is a major area.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we have another question. While respecting Islamic boundaries within a mixed yet conservative environment, e.g. the masjid, what is the ideal way to approach or show interest in the opposite gender or potential? Well,
some cases just go directly, you know, in some cases go direct and say that I have an interest. As Shu'aib went to Musa for his daughter.
Yeah.
Khadija with the Holy Prophet, peace be upon his family. Or in other cases, get a good friend to maybe have a word and see if there's any possibility.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. We'll just come back very quickly to the next WhatsApp question. But before we do, we had one waiting here. My ex is a drunkard. Is it true that my kids go to him when I move on? This is from Huda.
Yeah, it's a difficult one because the assumption is that as soon as you're divorced, as we know, for the first 2 years, definitely with the mom, and then as we said earlier, that if the boy, for example, gets to the age of 2, some had the opinion that straight away the mom has to give it to the dad. But the dad is somebody who's a drunkard. No way somebody who's the judge of Islamic law will accept that custody goes to somebody
Right.
who is of that type of character.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We've spoken about bitter divorces and children, you know, being sort of having resentment, as it were. We had a bitter divorce, but my ex, she has made my kids hate me. Is this acceptable? Does Islam talk about any amicability? And we've obviously spoken about that, but if you want to elaborate anything else, then we'll move on to the next question. My ex badmouths me to the whole Iraqi community and has even exposed our bedroom secrets. What do you advise on?
Oh, after a divorce, craziest things happen, and if you've had a bitter one, then don't be surprised if you're bad-mouthed. But one thing I always say is there's two sides to the story. You know, even if you think that you are right, there is a reality that there were certain things which you did wrong.
Yes.
There's always two sides of the story. Now, there are going to be people who are going to hate you whatever happens. There's going to be people who are going to badmouth you whatever happens. If you can get through the first couple of months after a divorce, you should be fine. They'll find somebody else who they'll go after, who they want to destroy.
Right, right, okay. Now, just in terms of continuing from maintenance, as it were, you've mentioned about the ages, as it were, according to various maraji and the offices, opinions, and so on and so forth. But also what we've had is a question coming back, as it were, in terms of how long should my husband maintain me if I am unmarried? That's the question here that's come back. If I remain unmarried and I have children, how long does he have to maintain?
His responsibility are the kids. His responsibility in relation to you as the wife is up to the iddah period finishes.
Okay, okay.
There are discussions in Islamic law, for example, about the husband maintaining a provision for his wife should they die. You know, should the husband die, there should be a provision maintained for a year, others say for a few months. But in terms of the idea of alimony, for example, within Shi'i law, it's an interesting one. If someone actually writes a paper on this, you're looking at the case that firstly, what you have is the dowry.
Right.
Let's look at this. So you've got this dowry which is agreed upon. And when this dowry is agreed upon, in some cases, the whole dowry will have to be paid if a divorce happens. If it happens without consummation, then half is to be returned. The other half is to be kept by the lady. And then you've got, for example, in the iddah period, food, clothing, for example, you know, the shelter, that is to be maintained in that period. After that, if, for example, let's say, somebody contributed to the furnishings of the house, the wife, then that amount that was contributed, for example, the furnishings all go back to her. She's the one who paid for that.
Right.
If, for example, you two have both invested in there is a contract where both of you have invested for a property, then again, there is a situation where the judge of Islamic law has to sit down and see how much did your wife put in.
Right.
Some turn around and say, all these years that I have looked after him and all of a sudden I receive nothing from him. Sadly, sometimes that's the bitterness of divorce. See, in Surah Al-Baqarah, there is the verse about maintaining the wife, but that normally refers to the maintenance, say there is no consummation which has occurred and there is a maintenance which has to be observed by the husband. And then you've got the scholars, some saying it's recommended to maintain, others saying there is nothing about maintenance post-divorce.
Okay.
Really, the intermediaries for maintenance are those kids.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Those kids are the ones who you as a father still have to spend on. And that wife, in reality, that wife is the one who's looking after those kids. So there has to be a conclusion which is reached. Now, some will turn around and say, I'm not going to do the Islamic way because that doesn't get me anything. I'm going for the full 50% which the non-Muslim legal courts allow me.
Yeah.
I want 50% of everything. Whether someone like Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam would have recommended us to seek the opinions of the non-Muslim when we could have resorted to the opinions of Islamic jurisprudence and scholars, that is something, a burden that you're going to have to bear on the day of judgment.
Right.
That I disregarded what Islamic law said.
Right.
And wanted to get the law of the land. In some cases, the law of the land has to be used because if you've got joint mortgage accounts and you've purchased this and it's in your name and you've put this much in, then yes, there is a provision that has to be ensured.
Okay.
But in terms of monthly payments and so on, that would normally be the agreement that the courts have come
But what about, I mean, we've had a question. Is it recommended that a woman or a family or guardian does not ask for high dowry, that it is her right to demand at any time? Just staying on this topic, I mean, we've heard recent cases of brothers who've been left with nothing, but at least the dowry safeguards us for the sake of the women.
Yeah, I think that's why there are people out there who will want a high dowry from the person who's come to propose for their daughter. Because they're like, listen, you put something up front.
Okay.
You're taking this commodity, excuse the language commodity, but Islamic legal terminology, it really is. You're taking this commodity, I want the deposit.
Right.
Now, I go to a car showroom now and I want to buy a car, they're going to say to me that make sure you put down a deposit.
Yeah.
And likewise, when it comes to this issue, this is the reality. There are people out there who will say, listen, £10,000 now, another 10,000 upon completion of divorce, for example, or we'll return to you 5,000 if you don't consummate, for example, and so on and so forth. And there are some, forget 10,000, some 15,000, some 100,000, some 1 million.
Right.
There are some, and sometimes you look, for example, in Iraq, there are some brilliant youth who cannot get married because of the extortion dowries. Now, Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam talks of, you know, the worst of times being when someone asks for a high dowry.
Yeah.
But some are now using this to say that, wait, if I'm not going to be maintained and I'm going to be doing everything for this family, but that shouldn't be the intention when you enter that marriage. You know?
Okay.
Look, I know things go sour. I know there are trials. But that should never be the intention. Intention is like, look, my Lord, I'm going to try my hardest. I hope he tries his hardest. We're going to try and make this work. Sickness, health, good times, bad. As the famous introduction would be if someone was in the church, for example, to a marriage nikah ceremony. And if it works, it works. It doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Right.
There are some husbands who are cheapskates. There's no doubt whatsoever, as cheap as you'll get. Who will ensure that every loophole is pulled for them not to maintain the wife and the kids.
Okay.
Mind you, those types of husbands, I think even if Imam Mahdi came, will not contribute to any of his campaigns. So you have that type who are completely neglectful of their duty. And you have to feel sorry for those ladies who not only are divorced, not only have to maintain their kids, but also have to go out and earn a living and balance all of that.
Right.
It can be extremely difficult.
Okay. So, sorry for jumping the gun, as it were. We're getting numerous WhatsApp messages, and that's why the questions are moving sideways, as it were. Salam, I know someone who is divorced, separated, with children who are old enough now, between 10 and 18 years of age. They started using the mother's maiden name as their surname. Is there any ruling to this Islamically? I have heard we cannot remove our father's surname. I'm not sure if this is correct. Please clarify.
Well, listen, you want to use your mother's name, there's no issue there, but there is still a biological attachment to your father. You know, someone gets adopted by somebody, and they can easily take the adopted name, but the reality is they have to maintain the name of who their original parent is. So you could do that, you know, have your mother's maiden name for whatever reason.
Yes.
You cannot deny parentage.
Okay. I have been married for a couple of years with no kids. My ex has cheated multiple times behind my back. He has also attempted to sexually assault my family members. Do I still need him to give me a divorce? We have been living separately for a year now. I've spoken to a sheikh, and the sheikh has contacted my ex, but he says he wants a legal divorce. Now my question is legal divorce good enough, or do I need to still get an Islamic divorce?
Well, the sheikh who you've contacted, if he sees that your partner's not maintaining you, whether it's physically or financially, he should arrange the divorce and get it done.
Okay, so they're really coming in fast now. Salams, in some cases of divorce, women who often get the right to children in the first 7 years take children away from the biological father, especially in developing countries where culturally it is difficult to force paternal rights, such as Pakistan and India. In such cases, what advice would you give such women who are now suppressing the rights of a father and their own children? Please use the alias Nazish.
Like I said, it's very difficult when someone has been through a turbulent relationship and remembers all the bad memories. But don't let those kids be destroyed because of your feelings.
Right.
It's not easy growing up in an environment knowing your mom and dad were divorced, seeing your mom and dad fight, seeing bitterness. And there are a number of ladies out there who've tried their hardest to contact husbands. It very rarely is the opposite way. But if it is the opposite way, then for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Day of Judgment, and for the sake of pleasing the family of the Prophet, in the sense that they taught us through all trials, try and look at the bigger picture.
Okay.
Try and soften your heart.
Okay.
You know, I remember a scene in Siffin. The water is with Muawiyah, and he won't give a sip of it to the army of Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen.
Yeah.
But when Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen has the water, he cannot bear to see the animals in Muawiyah's army thirsty. Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam taught us certain valuable lessons. Even though people had oppressed them, taken their rights, which many ladies feel that the ex has done, they try to find a way to build for the better.
Okay.
And even sometimes when you feel that you're part of a community maybe that has not observed their rights with you. There was the first imam of yours who lost his rights, but when you needed advice, he was the first to stand up and help. So let's take from their examples.
Yes.
And look at something a bit bigger. It's not easy. It requires a real struggle to have your kids smile with someone who hurt you so much. Soften your heart for those kids.
Yes. Sidna, unfortunately, we have run out of time. There was a few more questions. So, viewers, hopefully, inshallah, you've enjoyed this show. Do call in again next week, and please do kindly donate on Imam Hussein TV. The telephone number, again, for donations is 0203 515 0199. From Dr. Sayyid Ammar Nakshwani and myself, Muhammad Ali, Assalamu alaikum, and see you again next time, inshallah.
عشق اول و آخر من ای مهربان تر از مادر من یا واهب العطایا یا منتهی الرجایا یا دافع البلایا تشنه سر جدا خون بهایت خدا
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Have you ever contemplated over how this universe, the universe in which we live, how it came into existence? Have you ever thought about whether there exists a possibility for a life after death? Is it possible that this vast universe came into existence through chance? Or is it possible that it was created by some deity? And is there any proof to establish this theory? These are some of the questions that we hope to address through this new show, Journey Through Ideology, where we will try and establish answers to critical ideological questions and establish the 5 basic tenets of monotheism using textual as well as rational proof on this new show, Journey Through Ideology.
The mysteries of Islam fascinate us time and time again. This is no different from the life story of the Prophet. Who was Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam? An illiterate desert merchant who one day stumbled upon amazing Arabic rhetoric? Or was he the creation of Allah's greatest light, sent down to earth to pull man out of ignorance and bring them to the purest of truths? I, Ali Burji, am on a journey to discover the real story behind the Prophet, the real story behind our religion, the root, the beginning, the cradle of civilization.
Many of the youth in the West complain that they don't have an access to an English interpretation, tafsir or commentary of the Holy Quran. It has reached us from the Imams of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam that there is no problem that one faces where he or she cannot find its answer within the Holy Quran. Inshallah, one of this year's New Year's resolution will be to connect and to understand the Holy Quran. From the holy land of Karbala and within the vicinity of the shrines of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam and Abul Fadl Abbas alayhi salam, we will bring you a series of lectures about the interpretation and tafsir of the Holy Quran. Our aim is to start a series of lectures starting with the first chapter of the Holy Quran and continue inshallah to the last chapter. If you have followed my lectures, you know my style. Inshallah, we will have an action plan within every episode.
در کمر دارم ابوالفضل علم دارم.
The hadith al-Sharif Ma'soom Imam al-Sajjad, he says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given my uncle Abbas a maqam such that on the day of judgment all the shuhada and the siddiqeen will wish they had the maqam of Abul Fadil. And the Imam did not leave an exception for anyone within the kawn. The exception that we know is Ahlul Bayt through Ahkam Aqli.